Hello, and welcome to today's National 8A Association webinar. I am Haley Bingham, Deputy Director with the National 8A Association. The National 8A Association is a nonprofit with a mission to provide education and guidance for all aspiring, current, and graduate 8As. We are also proud to work with all types of minority small businesses, HubZone, veteran-owned, women-owned, JVs, agencies, large primes, and industry professionals. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this webinar is being recorded and all presentation materials will be posted on our website. And if you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat box and select everyone or email us at events@national8aassociation.org. I'd now like to introduce you to today's speaker, Jaime Garcia, from the Department of State. He is here to chat with all of our small businesses about ways that you can do business with the Department of State. So I will kick it off to you and welcome, and we're excited to have you today.
Thanks, Haley, and thanks everyone for joining us. As Haley mentioned, I'm Jaime Gracia, Director of Strategic Enterprise Programs at the Department of State. I'm part of our executive leadership team in procurement. I'm part of our administration bureau, the Office of Procurement Executives, so that's AOPE, in the Center for Acquisition Experience. This is a new organization that I lead, that I'm a member of, and part of the leadership group that I provide to do a lot of just as the title is, right, strategic enterprise programs, and certainly for today, part of industry engagement, industry liaison functions, and ensuring that we also have opportunities for small disadvantaged businesses and other DIA programs that I manage and lead. Next slide, please. So I wanted to jump right into it. We got a quick half an hour, so I just wanted to go through our slides. Of course, these slides will be provided to you. As Haley mentioned, this is recorded. I have a little bit of information here about how we did last fiscal year. As you can see, we're doing pretty well. Certainly, the woman-owned small business continues to be a little bit of a struggle for us, so we're trying to do some outreach specifically to them. But for us here in the 8A world, we're doing really well. As you can see, it's a pretty good percentage, the amount of spend for obligations. It's about 12 billion. So we're doing really well. We've got a lot of outreach programs that are on tap for fiscal year 24. So please do follow our LinkedIn page for Industry Liaison for a lot of great information about some of the things that we'll be doing. And of course, if there's ever an opportunity to do direct engagement with us, we'll talk about that as well at the end of the seminar. Next slide, please. So also wanted to provide a little bit of targeted information about what we are buying as an agency as it relates to the 8A community. As you can see, there's a fair amount of spend here with the 8A community, as you saw. I will be providing this information to Haley. I did a little bit of research with some of our data analytics folks. So the information that I'll have Haley send out to you will be this information that you see here. But it's also spend broken out by bureau. And that's very important for those that are interested in doing business with the Department of State. It's a little bit of just honestly, it's a bit of a tricky animal. My background, just for those of you who don't know me or familiar with me, most of my career has been spent in the private sector. I owned my own business. I was a veteran-owned company. So I do have a bit of an insight, if you will, into how industry functions and how to be successful doing business development with the federal government. So I wanted to share this information here so you can see what we buy, where we're buying it. Certainly no surprises. The biggest amount is in professional services, right? That kind of bucket for 541611 NAICS code. And then you'll also see facility support services, other scientific and technical, and also, interestingly enough, automobile manufacturing. That's an interesting one. That means you'll have to do some research. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time to delve into that. Happy to go into it. But a lot of that is because of our global footprint. I mean, we've got a huge fleet of vehicles that need maintenance. We have a huge asset inventory of consulates and embassies and facilities across the globe that need to be constructed and maintained. So That's really where a lot of our business is for professional services, construction, which would include A&E services, and also IT, of course, which, like most agencies, we have a fairly large spend footprint as well. And I also did want to provide the top 8A vendors so you can do research on them, the contracts that they have with the Department of State for teaming opportunities, but also the type of things that you'll see here that we buy, and also by bureau. Next slide, please. So how do you work with the Department of State? Well, we just launched our new website to provide you information. That's state.gov/business. Please visit that. There's a lot of great information on there, not only for doing business as an 8A, but just as a small business in conjunction with our OSDBU, and also with the department as a whole. So one thing that I encourage you not to do, and I've already gotten about 5 or 6 emails so far today, and I usually get anywhere from 15 to 20, is, hey, I'm a, insert socioeconomic category here. I do IT services. Can I get 30 minutes of your time so I can do a capability demonstration to you? That's not going to be successful, because my response is, why? That's it can be a bit odd and somewhat off-putting and irritating. And I just wanted to explain that a little bit, because these steps here, and I just want to cover them real quickly, are how you need to approach not only the Department of State, but I would recommend any federal agency or customer for which you are targeting. And that's, of course, a very important point that I'll mention and refine in a second, is how to target. And I mentioned previously, the Department of State is a bit of a tricky beast to do business development in, because the Department of State is broken up by bureaus. As I mentioned, I'm in the Administration Bureau, the A Bureau. And from a business development standpoint, each bureau acts effectively as its own independent agency. So that being said, each agency, ergo bureau, is really buying a lot of these goods and services, which is why I wanted to send you specific information about what each bureau is spending with 8As, so you can get a better sense of where that money is being obligated. So to approach us, again, with Department of State, really let us know exactly, not that you do IT services, but exactly what product and service you offer. Of course, you have to be registered in SAM.gov. That's a no-brainer. I did mention a little bit about your target market and customer. It's a lot more effective approach, certainly for us here at the Department of State, if you come to us and say, hey, look, I provide IT services. That's great, but I can help Bureau X do mission Y, and I know you have this need. So I would love to be able to discuss it with you. That is really the approach that we talk about for identifying your target market and customer. You really have to do your homework to understand the organization, who you're trying to buy, because at the end of the day, right, this is sales. So the two most important questions are, what's in it for me and why do I care, right? That's why you need to really think about those two questions and target your marketing through that lens. Because as I mentioned, right, I've already get these emails, hey, can I get 30 minutes of your time? But if you come to me with your homework done, with the target, with the goal, now I can really see that you are for real, and that I can interest you in doing it. I mean, in a perfect world, I would love for industry liaison and really engagement to work, where you can say, hey, I do IT, and I would love to do a demo for you, and then I had unlimited amount of the time and resources to do it. And then I do the demo, and I can say, oh, this is awesome. I know exactly that this organization and this agency at this bureau is doing that, and that Joe in this organization and department, I know, has a need and a contract coming up. So I want to introduce you to, and then you're off to the races. That's what I would love for the world to be. That regretfully is not the world that we live in. So the message really is, help me help you so I can be more effective. Unfortunately, the bureau, or excuse me, the agency, department is just too vast for me to be able to do that. Certainly, I want to do the best that I can, but that's also understanding the procurement rules that we do. because of our global footprint, some of the things that we do are not run of the mill. And that's certainly very relevant with our construction portfolio. Most of that work is done overseas, and sometimes in areas that are very challenging. So we'll get to it in a little bit. But not everybody can do that, right? Certainly for construction, there's a lot of bonding issues, there's insurance issues, there's labor issues, and that's also specific to the region or the country. So there's a lot of interesting information that you need to be aware of, specifically as it relates to the Department of State. That other agencies don't have. So you have to be able to understand what they are and come prepared to know that. As I mentioned, another difficult problem, not problem, I should say, but just challenge really with the department is the security clearance issue. For the most part, facility clearance is a must. If you don't have that facility clearance, that's extremely difficult to do work with the Department of State. So that is, I mean, for me personally, it's a barrier to entry. And we are working on that in addition to our partners with OSDBU and SBA to see how we can ensure that the department's mission is conducted in an obviously secure manner, but also find ways to ensure that we are not unintentionally breaking any type of barrier there and try to lower barriers to entry with the security clearance process, because we know it's top of mind for a lot of companies that are interested in doing business with the department, but can't because of the security clearance issue that's very specific and unique for the Department of State. And certainly, this is excellent advice for anybody, is starting off with the Department of State and any federal agency for that matter can be very challenging. So look for subcontracting opportunities. I mean, obviously, being a prime is preferable, but nonetheless, subcontracting does provide a lot of great opportunities to get your foot in the door, start creating relationships, start creating past performance profiles, start creating capacity and capability so that you can now move into prime contracts. But it's a process. And certainly getting your foot in the door to a federal agency like the Department of State can be challenging, but certainly subcontracting is a very important way to do that. And another reason why I want to send a little bit more information to you folks about the agency, the bureaus, and the spend, so you can see exactly how best to target the Department of State. And of course, the last thing I want to mention is the vehicles. Department of State, like every other agency, has its spend under management category and its goals that it needs to do. Certainly, another part of my portfolio is our category management program. So I'm looking ways to not only consolidate spend so we're that more efficient buyer as an agency, but also with DIA goals in mind, how do we not erode further any type of small business opportunities through bundling. And again, that's in conjunction with our OSDBU office. And how do we better utilize vehicles that already exist before we go out and build another one, which may not be necessary, or just because the customer has not done effective market research and thinks it's in their best interest to create one from scratch. So that's another part of business development, which is educating your customer on what vehicles are available to get to you, right? Which is kind of the second part, the last one there, which is don't come to me and say, your first pitch is, hey, I'm an 8A, because my answer is, okay, great. Please take a number and get to the back of the line and I'll get with you, because that line is very deep, right? You don't want to just start with the set asides and with your socioeconomic category. It's very important, of course, but these other things I would argue are a little bit more important, because 9 and 10 are about how I get to you, and that's certainly an important sales pitch, but don't just rely on that information. You have to be able to, again, what's in it for me and why do I care, and ensure that you set the tone, because certainly one of my most important jobs is not only setting up that first meeting with you, but ensuring that you're successful so you can get the second, because I want to get you out of the business development cycle and get you into capture management, which is how you're going to be successful as a contractor, but also certainly at the Department of State. Next slide. So a little bit about my role of industry liaison versus OSDBU. I talked a little bit about that. So the industry liaison is really about opening up the door, if you will, to the agency, trying to, I always say, I always try to play trainman the best that I can and understand where you might fit. Again, as I mentioned, that's very challenging here at the department. Because again, with the focus on bureau operations, it makes things very difficult, because some bureaus also have their own industry engagement arms for which I try to collaborate with. And certainly our IT office, our Information Resource Management office, does that as well. So we're trying to build bridges with them, help them also with their mission of industry engagement, and understand how best to provide opportunities for industry to interact with the department based on capabilities and mission sets and what we're trying to do. Again, it's more of a collaborative model between the agency and industry, and how best to ensure that we provide opportunities, which now gets into the OSDBU realm, because that's really their goal, is to ensure maximum opportunities for the small business community. Of course, small business is not exclusively my focus and domain, because I represent industry, all sizes and shapes, not just small businesses, but of course, small business is a very important focus for us at the Department of State. So there is a lot of small business activity, which is why it's very important for us to work directly with OSDBU and help the small business community specifically, and ensure that we not only try to diversify our supplier base, but find ways to do more small business set-asides where appropriate, and also find different opportunities where we can do small business requirements, as opposed to, as I mentioned, try to get out of the habit of bundling and creating big contracts, tier zero, frankly, IDIQs and BPAs, and try to use more of the vehicles that exist, and also find ways that we can have a bit more and expansive small business participation for the requirements and the needs that are happening here at the department. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, state.gov/business, that's the ground floor for us. Please use that. Of course, we do have our LinkedIn page, as I mentioned, for Industry Liaison. Please use that as well. I mean, the department is very active in social media, on LinkedIn, certainly on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, as it mentions here. And this is a great wealth of opportunity to understand what the department does, what the department is doing, and then putting that through a business development lens. There is possible opportunities now to see what's happening. And I personally do that quite a bit myself. Certainly a good example is a report on Federal News Network not too long ago was discussing an organization that was focused here at the department on combating human trafficking and finding ways to do that. So I had reached out as a result of that article on Federal News Network to that organization to understand what they do. Again, looking at the article, it sounded like there were some requirements pending, right? I did my own research to see what they were buying, talk to that office so I can better understand what it was that they were doing, what capabilities they were needing, and then of course trying to match industry capability with those needs so that we can do better market intelligence, do better market research, and then what's needs were identified, right, better requirements through better engagement. So I just mentioned that as a pretty successful use case of the type of homework that I do, certainly for Industry Liaison, but the type of homework that you should be doing as well through social media channels, so that you can better understand the department. Again, target how you're going to approach the department, and then help me understand how I can best service you in industry. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the different types of engagement that we're doing and will continue to do. We're going to continue to do our quarterly briefs. We got one coming up right now, scheduled for December 12th. So look for advertising information on our Industry Liaison page. We will continue to work with our customers, which is really not only program offices, but also our procurement office, to ensure that their customers are getting the best market research opportunities, to do opportunities now with one-on-one, which is, in my opinion, one of the most impressive and important meetings with vendors for requirements development not just capabilities, but ensuring that the customer is educated not only on your company, but also on the requirements, so you can put yourself in the most advantageous opportunity now, as I mentioned, for capture. We also want to find more expansive opportunities to just kind of get out of the habit, as all federal agencies do, of putting out a source of sought notice or a request for information, and then it just kind of sits there. And then 6 months later, here comes the RFP without really any opportunities for any direct engagement with the customer, really understanding what their needs are, what the requirements are, and what they're trying to do. So that's really the umbrella of what we're trying to do is, and culturally, this Department of State doesn't traditionally do that. So we understand that. I mean, this is a big change management exercise for all of us here at the department, and what we're trying to do through the industry liaison function and my team is to really try to move the engagement to the left of the procurement life cycle through one-on-ones, through listening sessions, through more expansive RFIs, through opportunities now for draft RFPs, right? Let's try to not focus on just spending 8 months writing requirements and then putting out the RFP. I'd like us focused on statement of objectives, on outcomes, challenge statements. Let's start putting that out there so we can do better market intelligence and, of course, provide more opportunity for engagement with the small business community. So that's what we're looking at doing. We've been pretty successful over the last year doing that, and we will continue to do so. So look for LinkedIn to see what opportunities are available for engagement as we start ramping up these opportunities in this coming fiscal year. Next slide, please. I did want to mention a little bit here. You can find these acquisition priorities on the state.gov/business, but I just wanted to touch on them briefly, not in any specific order, but this is through direct feedback we heard from industry. We did do our first annual industry survey this past summer. Hopefully some of you on this call participated in that. If you didn't, if you're a Department of State vendor, you should have received that information. Certainly, if you are and did not, please let me know, because we want to make sure that we correct your information. But if you're also interested in doing business with the Department of State and just haven't been successful, we certainly want to get that feedback as well as to some of the challenges that you're facing, so we can hopefully help improve that situation. And again, try to diversify our supplier base. It's really the important one. And specifically with our construction portfolio and also our diplomatic security portfolio. As I mentioned, because of the challenges that we have doing business overseas, that's really the probably the biggest challenge, is how do we diversify our supplier base in a global environment where not everybody can do this business, right? There's a lot of different challenges. So we are continuing to try to understand where the challenges are and how we can, again, lower those barriers to entry for more competition and more opportunities for the supplier base. Because it's just not an amount of just small businesses, but how many small businesses are getting these awards. Hopefully we can improve those numbers, because not only better competition, but more innovation and just more opportunities to really drive thought leadership and better outcomes through more participation of the great businesses that are involved out there for the department. Another thing that's really important to us is better acquisition planning. So that's really about understanding what our customers want to buy for the upcoming fiscal year. I mean, we always, and this is just for everyone in the federal government, right? It's the fourth quarter, right? What I like to call the feeding frenzy, right? So all these requirements are out there. Some of them are known, some of them are not. And it's just this big paper pushing exercise where sometimes quality and competition go out the window in an attempt to just obligate dollars and get the mission done. So it's a very difficult process, because a lot of things are out of our control. Certainly budgets are out of our control. When the money comes is out of our control. But at the end of the day, we do have budgets done. We do have priorities done. So we want to try to understand, once the money hits, right? What are the real priorities and how that's money's going to be spent so that we can have less reactive mode and go to more proactive mode, not only for our workforce, but also to provide better opportunities and information for industry. We're in the process right now of trying to restart really our forecast initiative on how we can improve the forecast, how we can provide better data, and also provide more opportunities for advanced planning information so that the procurement forecast from the Department of State can be used for what it's intended, really, as an opportunity for businesses to use it to build your pipeline and see what needs and requirements are upcoming so that we can improve competition and also provide better opportunities for our small business stakeholders. Next slide, please. So kind of a lot of information and not a lot of time. So I just want to give you a little bit of information about our contact here. You can always contact me, right? Industry liaison at state.gov. I'm always around. We do also want to provide information for our policy office on acquisition inquiries at state.gov. If you do have more specific information, and of course, you can always reach out to our OSDBU office at small business at state.gov for those specific areas that I mentioned that are the realm of the OSDBU office here at the department. So I know we are running a little bit out of time, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of information for you. Were a couple of questions here. I just want to see if we can mention a little of them about registering your business with the Department of State. So we don't have a registration yet. That's certainly one of our projects that we're looking at. And that's also going to be looked at through the procurement forecast initiative, because what we had looked at is finding ways to register you as a business so that we can get your capability statement. We can create a kind of a database of doing internal market research for that. Certainly on SAM.gov was what I was referring to make sure that your business is registered so that you are eligible to receive awards from the department. But we are trying to find ways to be more proactive and engaging with industry. And we have some initiatives that we intend to roll out this year so that you can sign up for newsletters and sign up for information. And again, in an initiative to be more proactive about the information that we want to do. Point of contact I just provided there. Security clearances are a little bit different because that depends on the requirement, where it is, the type of information that's needed. Access that should be coming out hopefully Q2 of this fiscal year. So look for information about that. We do use the Small Business Dynamic Research. Actually, so one thing that we're doing internally, and kind of a difference, I think, between OSDBU and Industry Liaison is we're on a not only awareness campaign of Industry Liaison and these functions because they are relatively new to the department. We as an agency have never really had an industry liaison function like we're trying to build before at the department level. So we want to help educate the State Department on how to do more market intelligence and more market research and those types of activities. So certainly all the tools that are available to you, we want to try to condense. We're putting together kind of one-on-one slides through coaching. We want to try to work with our policy office and procurement so that we can train our workforce on the different types of tools that are available to them and really helping educate our customers and the requirements owners on how to do more effective market research and how to do better market intelligence so that, again, we can get more participation from the small business community, different subset of customers, different types of innovation and also for competition, and really just open up the aperture to different companies that are not traditionally in business with the department. So that's certainly something that we're looking at. Do I have any knowledge about Linguist Security Contract? You can send me an email afterwards if you can be a little bit more specific. Same with the question about the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica. If you have a little bit more specific information, you can certainly try to help you there.
All right, Jaime,
I'm not
I'll
sure I
jump in
understand.
here. what we'll do is we'll go ahead and compile all these questions and send them over to you guys so you guys can also review them. But I'd like to thank you so much for your insightful and informative presentation today. If anyone does have any other questions for our speaker, you can contact them directly. You'll see their contact information here, or contact us directly. We're happy to connect you as always. As a reminder, this webinar recording and presentation will be posted on our website along with all of our other past webinars. And then we do have some additional resources that are available at our upcoming conferences and partner events. We will be having our National Small Business Conference and Small Business Industry Awards Gala in Atlanta this upcoming February. Registration is open for both those events, so don't wait. Get those taken care of because they will both likely sell out very soon. And if you have any questions on anything that was covered today, please feel free to reach out to us or our speaker directly, but we'd like to thank you all for joining us. This concludes today's webinar, and we hope that you join us next month. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.